Oh no, I don't know if your mic is working. Oh, I hear the clicking. Nope, I think that's just my clicking.
All right. Does this sound?
There we go. Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay. So calling in from Pennsylvania, it's Adrian Tepes, and from Illinois, this is Albeleo. So we have our third episode of Whatever Happened to Castlevania. I'm sorry about the audio.
You're good, buddy.
I hit the wrong settings. So we're gonna
All
get
good.
started here. Third episode of Whatever Happened to Castlevania. So we're gonna have all three of these episodes together in one as premiere later next week. So it should be a great premiere on this and Rumble. And without too much further ado, we're going to get started with our third and last for a while Castlevania episode. Next week, we're going to be talking about, and this is our recent attractions. So I made a monster episode, Medusa, and Finding Annette in Dracula X Chronicles. Albeleo's recent ones are
Oh, you cut out there, buddy.
There, Albeleo?
No, you just cut out there.
Let me see.
I can kind of hear. Well, I can hear you now. It was weird. You like roboted for a moment.
All right.
Changed up genres on me.
Does this sound better?
Oh, much better.
Okay. Something with the volume. My other mic had an issue, so I'm going to be getting a better one next week.
Oh, sure.
All right. So that's better. So these are recent attractions. Anything you want to say about yours?
Yeah. Well, I posted a video discussing Inside Out 2, which turned out to be fine. It was just more of the same, and I discussed whether or not Furiosa deserved to fail after its legendary box office failure during what was that, Memorial Weekend?
Yeah, it was Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. So it's our day. We celebrate. Other countries have it for celebrating those who died in war for their country. So we're going to go on to the next one. And so here we're going to talk about a reboot. So they were not having very great expected results in selling Castlevania games near the end. There was Harmony of Despair, but that's more of a multiplayer co-op game. But I think it's enjoyable if you can hook up with your friends online and play together. But Harmony of Despair just wasn't quite it. And the Ending Sorrow game didn't quite sell the number that it was. So they decided on doing a reboot, new alternate universe. But we still have a whip-wielding protagonist called Belmont. It's just pretty different. So what were the things you're reading about, Albeleo?
For Shadow?
Yeah, Lords of Shadow.
So I watched.
How far have you gotten in learning about it? So we have Gabriel Belmont who starts it, but we don't have Matthias or Leon as it starts.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to trying to recreate something from scratch and keeping it similar and trying to do something a little different. So I'm actually not necessarily against Gabriel becoming the vampire,
Right.
but
Yeah, you play
the
as the
change was
Dracula,
really
but
harsh.
yeah, it was pretty brutal. I think some elements of the mythos in Lords of Shadow were interesting. The fact is, we'll go into the Forgotten One in an upcoming slide, but the Forgotten One was an interesting personification of why the castle is alive. So,
Yes, which is also almost like never discussed. But
right, you don't see a personification in the older games really. I mean, you see Chaos, but his role is more of that of Lucifer or Satan in Lords of Shadow. But it's
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
that you get to play as the Dracula most of the time. It gets a little different in the middle game or Mirror of Fate, which was a disappointment. But overall, Lords of Shadow started well. The first Lords of Shadow was 1.77 million games sold, which puts it even above the unit sales of the first Castlevania in 1986 at 1.56 million.
hmm yeah. It was the largest selling Castlevania I think ever, and it seemed like as I did my research, is like everybody was more or less okay with the changes until you get to the end.
Right. I mean, in the first Lords of Shadow game, it's kind of similar to Lament of Innocence because you are playing Gabriel with the whip. Well, it's just that it's not as unique as the vampire killer in the other ones. Like you start with an alchemist whip in Lament of Innocence, but it eventually becomes upgraded. In the case of Gabriel, his whip is something that he does with his cross, which the other knights technically have. It's like
hmm
they Jedified it. I'm gonna say it like they made it like a lightsaber that Jedi Knights use, rather
Yeah,
than unique whip it was in the original Castlevania.
I could agree to that. I do like that it's shaped as a cross. I just wonder uh, where the chain goes.
Right, it comes out like a lightsaber. That's why I said that's why I thought of a lightsaber when I was originally getting this
hmm
presentation ready. As a wait a minute, the chain comes out of the whip, and I mean to be fair, Leon's whip is a cross that he's holding, but it doesn't have the chain coming out of it. It's just it's just the part that Leon holds is a cross or like a hilt.
It's like the hook shot for Link. It's like how does he lift it? It's got to be so heavy.
The length of chain, yeah. Yeah, that's another way of thinking of it, Legend of Zelda. But I think the cast was interesting. They chose Patrick Stewart. Oh, why am I forgetting this? Robert Carl. That's it. That's the main voice is Robert Carl. I forgot it for a second.
hmm Yeah,
Robert Carl and Patrick Stewart as the co-stars.
yeah. What was the company? Mercury Steam, I believe, was the ones who
Yeah,
worked on
they
this.
they did some
Um,
accuracy, and they even
they
called out to
they
well
really went
David.
wild on this one.
They did. It was crazy enough because David Cox, who Konami had as the producer, he just figured like I don't know exactly what I'm doing. This is Dave help me with this because you produced a lot of games before this. So
hmm
so we asked Hideo Kojima for Metal Gear Solid. Like I need to learn a little bit about this because I haven't been a producer on a video game before. Could you help?
Yeah, and it's not
So
like it's
he
an incompetent game necessarily, too, because Mercury Steam went on to make the official remake for Metroid 2.
yeah, they
So
did.
the promise was there.
Right. But it's just I just find it funny that they asked the producer for Metal Gear Solid over there to co-produce the first
Yeah,
one.
yeah, he's a bit of a nut job.
He trolls quite a bit. I don't know if you've seen how many of Kojima's trolls on. He's not. He's
I
pretty light. Kojima's pretty lighthearted and not that serious. Yeah, he had a pretty funny happy birthday to Kurt Russell. I mean, even though Kurt Russell said no to being the voice of Solid Snake, he said a pretty cool happy birthday to Kurt Russell. So I thought that was funny.
Oh, Kurt Russell would have been awesome.
Right. I was actually watching
Huh.
so Escape from New York came on to Amazon Prime yesterday, so I was watching part of it. I'm gonna try and finish it today.
Okay.
Finish Escape from New York today, but again, I'm gonna go back to this. So, as I
Mhm.
noted in the end of this, it shares similarities with Castlevania and Legacy of Kain. So I'm someone who's played through Legacy of Kain. It's another dark fantasy series, but it has a lot of similarities in the plot. So,
Mhm.
Lords of Shadow begins with Gabriel Belmont. You also have a new Trevor, new Simon. So Gabriel's top, Trevor's lower right, lower left, and Simon is lower right.
Yep. And I find it interesting the way they just kind of they basically kept they. It's interesting how they kept the same basic characters, which again is fine, and then basically just made it one big family.
Right. Well, Dracula and the Belmonts are the same family,
Mm-hmm.
which is the
Yeah,
idea of
instead of
legend. Which is the idea of legends where supposedly Alucard is Trevor's father. Well, it's even weird here because it's a hold my beer because now Alucard and Trevor end up being the same person.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting choice to learn about. I didn't know that when you go through Mirrors of Fate, you see the different outcomes of everything. And
Right, because
so
that's
when
the
it's
new.
revealed, you're just like, oh.
Yeah, because the mirror is the new Belmont artifact. I mean, the whips aren't unique in Lords of Shadow, but the mirror is. So
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel first. Okay, so this is a little complicated in Mirror of Fate. So Trevor gave the mirror to Simon, and Gabriel got it back, and then he saw in the mirror that that's it. So you remember how they try to recreate this in the Castlevania Netflix series, but I feel they do it better here because Gabriel realized when he looks in the mirror, it's like, oh, oh shit, Trevor is my son, and I just fatally stabbed him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were some similarities, like when well, it's what, the first episode when he strikes down Alucard.
Yeah, but in this one, it's cool because Gabriel or the Count Dracula. This one, Gabriel realizes, oh crap, I already stabbed him, and this is
Mm-hmm.
I am his father. But I think it's also cool too when when Trevor talks to Simon and you realize, oh, the mirror, he's not lying. So the Mirror of Fate is kind of interesting, but I feel that they blew through it in Mirror of Fate a little too quickly. I feel they could have saved more for um, Lords of Shadow 2. But other than that,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things you felt they kind of rushed a bit or didn't do as well as they could have in this one?
The biggest issue for me, since I haven't played the games yet, but from what I've heard, it really just comes down to the story and how there's no proper connection between all three of them, and the story itself is convoluted on, well, we need to turn you into Dracula, and we didn't mean to, but then you get to the later game and you're like, oh, we kind of actually needed to because Satan's
Right.
coming back, and it's like, wait, what? Why?
Well, yeah. So yeah, it's kind of abruptly there. So in the early in Lords of Shadow 2, you meet Alucard and it's like, wait a minute, who are you? So you need to go back to Mirror of Fate to find out that, oh, he's Trevor, and
Hmm.
Gabriel fatally stabbed him. He didn't seem to respond to all the blood, so he put him in a coffin, and it ends with the Lords of Shadow Simon, which you get to play as in Mirror of Fate
Hmm.
for most of the game, and you get to see. So Simon leaves. Alucard says he'll go down with the castle along with the Gabriel as well. So Gabriel comes back, but you need Mirror of Fate to find out how this new Alucard came about. and then they don't exactly work linearly in a linear fashion in Lords of Shadow 2, because you have, flashback parts to explain what exactly happened, because Gabriel jumps from the medieval into the present, from the 1400s into the present, and you get all these flashbacks, so it's out of order, so to speak, in terms of figuring out how you got to there.
Yeah, the one issue I did see that people brought up too was that the DLC that was supposed to answer all of the problems just kind of have you playing as Alucard, and then he puts the sword away, and you're like, all right, that's it. There's not really, there's not like a reason why he had, like, Gabriel has to come back to fight in the future.
Right. But I think one of the good parts was how they did Patrick Stewart as Zobek, or the Grim Reaper, because at the end of the first one, you realize, oh crap, they were basically having him be, your right hand man as Gabriel, and all these things like they'll be seeing me soon as hints that that Zobek, played by Patrick Stewart, actually was the Grim Reaper. But then you realize that by calling back, they did a great job of hinting it to you. It's slightly not as good as Zed from Curse of Darkness, which is, the canon one, but it was pretty interesting of a plot twist when they finally revealed that Patrick Stewart was Death.
Better than just dying immediately like the Emperor from Oblivion.
Right. Elder Scrolls Oblivion, yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the better times in Elder Scrolls. That and Morrowind. So, but yeah, they reveal the Grim Reaper with Patrick Stewart and all those hints that he gave you throughout the game was pretty well done. It was the better part. I was disappointed with the new Walter Bernhardt, because he's a guy who plays with souls and dolls, and you just have to get rid of him. I mean, Carmela was a bigger part of that element of that story than Walter was. So he felt like a discounted version of the doll maker from Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen. Which, even then, that doll maker was a side part to get for the plot to get rolling, and for you in Legacy of Kain to travel back in time. So yeah, if you're wondering what I'm saying, Legacy of Kain has a lot of time travel into the past and gets slightly more confusing than this does. Although in the later Soul Reaver games, you mainly spend time in one particular part in time, so you don't have as much time traveling around. But yes.
Yeah, anytime time travel is introduced, it doesn't matter how good or bad the game is. Like, the time travel basically, like, unintentionally, it basically ruins the experience to some degree, because there's just no way to understand time travel properly.
Yeah. Oh, from DA Drive. Yes, the Chrysogrim was a plot device. So yes, the Alucard, who's actually Trevor in Lords of Shadow, has it. He made it because Gabriel Belmont broke a Holy Cross, and he made the sword from the cross. If that answers you, DA Drive, CJ?
Yeah, Chrysogrim is the sword that
it's the broken sword.
It's the one that he puts in the castle.
Right.
That Alucard puts in the castle, Trevor.
Yes.
And that doesn't really answer anything. It's just there.
It's from when Gabriel killed Carmilla in the first one, so he built it from the broken cross. Yeah, I would like to see 99, especially since they never made a game about 99, but they were sidetracking to make Castlevania 64 in 99. And even that was incomplete, because it was the Legacy of Darkness that was what the makers of Castlevania 64 really wanted to go with.
It's the same sort of thing. Not to change the subject, because I don't want to bury the lead, but it's the same sort of thing that drives me insane about like Nintendo with Legend of Zelda. It's like they always talk about these massive epic wars. We never join them, never experience them. We're
Every
always just
single list
we're just
has
some twink in a tunic trying to help some princess. I want to be a part of the
right.
wars.
I mean, those wars are they're part of the past in those games, but you know,
Yeah.
it's part of the backstory that the goddesses or the wise men did something, and you have to kind of try to prevent it from being undone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kojima kind of sick. I agree, ZXO. It is pretty interesting. Kojima has an interesting set of um, he has had interesting ideas. Some of them really goofy, and some of them somewhat interesting. We'll talk more about some of Kojima's games because when Albeleo and I recommend retro games next week, I'm going to be talking about Metal Gear Solid because Metal Gear Solid was where Metal Gear became 3D. So
And I will have my options for you later today. Just
yeah,
I'm still adjusting to the schedule. This it's been brutal.
oh, it's fine. We had a crazy thunderstorm and tornado warning yesterday.
I heard. I hope. I'm hopeful you guys are safe.
We're okay. You never know when a thunderstorm could turn into a tornado. I mean, Pennsylvania isn't Tornado Alley, but it can happen. So you just have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It's kind of funny, you know. We went into our basement floor in the house just to be sure, but when it's over, it's over. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this after this with the alternates and I'll finish it off with mentioning Victor Belmont, and as I mentioned before, they had Satan or Lucifer instead of Chaos that you'd have in the Sorrow games, and they had Victor Belmont, who was supposed to be in Castlevania Resurrection, but he's in this one in the future, and he's one of the boss battles fight, but he's the last Belmont Holy Warrior, or at least he thought so. But then you've got Gabriel back, so he kind of takes over. So yeah, they took ideas from Legends, Castlevania Legends, like the Belmonts and Dracula being the same family, or Victor Belmont, and put him in Lords of Shadow. So we're coming at our conclusions. My conclusion is that the reboot was well. It just kind of went down a slope after the first Lords of Shadow.
Yeah, it like I mentioned from my again, because I haven't played the games. I do want to get a hold of them. But it's like everything peaks pretty hard right before that like third act of the game, and then it just drops off hard because the story just makes no sense and it's too much too quickly.
Right.
Mirror of Fate seems to be the most like universally acknowledged one as being decent across the board, although it still doesn't answer the time problem. And then pretty much Lords of Shadow 2 is just gets shit on by everybody.
It does. I mean, it's hard to think much more plot after Lords of Shadow 2. I mean, it ends very similar to Dawn of Sorrow. I mean, you've defeated the biggest of the bad, so what's left to do? And it's like it feels a lot like Metal Gear Solid in terms of how the last boss battle works. But,
yeah.
So
and they also have those Shadow Shadow of the Colossus styled fights too, which is really interesting.
Oh yeah. I don't know if that's one of your recommendations. Just let me know. I mean, we might even do more than one retro game recommendations coming up.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it started well as a well-meaning reboot to set up a really congested story or timeline, but it ultimately ended up going downhill after the first one. But it was the highlights to me are just the fact that the actual soul that makes the Castlevania in these games alive is an actual person that you battle in the game as Gabriel. And to me, that's interesting. Not only that, but the alchemical stones all are named. I mean, they never explained to you what the orange stone that Chaos has. I mean, we get introduced to 2 of the 3 alchemical stones. We know what the black and the red ones are in Lament of Innocence, but we never know what the orange one that Chaos has in Dawn of Sorrow is. But in Lords of Shadow, the alchemical stone that's orange is the Stone of Destruction, ice and fire. So I felt that was interesting how Lords of Shadow actually gave that detail to the alchemical stones, which you didn't quite get in the original timeline. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of want to dig into Lords of Shadow a bit more, just to have more of a basis on it.
I'm going to be getting the Steam versions of these games next month, and I'm going to try them out that way.
Cool. I'm pretty much looking at getting the Steam versions too.
I mean, I have the PS3, but something's wrong, I think, with my Lords of Shadow 2 disc. So I'm going to shoot the Steam versions for backup. It's sad. It's sad. But my PS2 games still work, so there's always a bad one in the batch. So This is so references in media to Castlevania. So we're gonna go over this. Dracula 2000.
Yeah, so, you mentioned this one, and I did catch your tweet the other day. I never put this one together, and I enjoyed this movie when it came out.
Oh, I did, because it was just this. Yeah, you know what, CXO? We could talk about the Netflix series for the original and Nocturne later in a later episode.
I'm gonna shamelessly plug myself, ZX. If you go to my channel, I have a video where I thrash Nocturne.
Yeah, I think you did slightly better than that the Reaper guy on YouTube.
And I do at some point want to return to doing the other 4 seasons of the original show. I just have not had the time. So I will get around to doing all of the Netflix Castlevania properly later.
Oh, we could talk about it. We're going to take a little break, though, for talking about retro games you recommend. But yeah, so the origin, when I watched Dracula 2000, I thought, why did I not think of that origin in particular?
Okay, so the reference here, somebody throws the cross.
And uses the Holy Bible attack that gets used by Alucard and Richter Belmont, too. The Holy Bible attack. I tried. I get a copyright mark, but I'll put a link to both those videos I have in short video form in my description, because I have them and I don't get copyright takedowns for the short videos on my YouTube channel. But yeah. But I do if I put it in a live stream. Don't ask. Glitch Text. I think, isn't that a Netflix series, Glitch Text?
I am unaware.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so getting back to it, there's a guy named Simon, not Belmont, played by Johnny Lee Miller. And he's the guy who does both of those Castlevania reference attacks of throwing the cross and the Holy Bible from Rondo of Blood and Symphony. So.
What it's been forever since I've seen Dracula 2000. What is the Bible attack? Like, so I know he's in
the library. So he's in the library. So in Rondo of Blood or Symphony of the Night, Richter or Alucard they let out pages from a Holy Bible, and it like burns and attacks monsters. And he does the same thing in this one. So he's cornered in the library with Dracula coming at him, because he's going after Mary, played by Justine Waddell. And Simon pulls out the Holy Bible, and Dracula's like, "You think that's a threat to me?" So he opens it up, and the pages attack him, just like how Richter or Alucard attack with Holy Bible pages in their video game.
Wow. I need to go back and see this. It's been so long. I don't remember it.
So he does the Holy Bible attack and the cross throw in this same movie. And
Nice.
both of those were in the games before Dracula 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And plus his name is Simon, just not Belmont.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things, both of those things. So now this one is not a case of being a reference to Castlevania so much as Castlevania is a reference to this one, especially in Lament of Innocence. Gary Oldman Winona Ryder.
Great
I
movie
do
too.
like this film, but I felt like they really, yeah, they miscast Keanu Reeves. I'm sorry, as
Yeah,
Harker,
yeah. Everybody kind of
but
accepts that.
otherwise, Anthony Hopkins and Gary Oldman are pretty good in it.
I will be right back. Go ahead and continue.
All right, so yeah, Gary Oldman breaks the mold of you usually having a person with the surname starting with L, because obviously Gary Oldman starts with an L. But Gary Oldman is the Dracula in this one. He starts out as Vlad the Impaler. That's his origin according to this Dracula film. And otherwise, they go into the events of the Dracula novel set in 1897. Um, he has a wife named Elizabetha, which, as you may recognize, that Elizabetha is the name of Matthias Cronquist's wife in Lament of Innocence. So Dracula has a wife with the exact same name. And what's interesting is also that Lisa and Elizabetha in the Castlevania games look almost exactly alike. So, and both Elizabetha and Mina Harker and Elizabetha both look about the same. So, because they're both played by Winona Ryder. So both Elizabetha, the wife that died back when he was Vlad the Impaler, and oh, okay. So DA Drive CJ, it's on Nickelodeon and then Netflix. Okay, because I thought when I saw Glitch Text, there was this show that my son was watching with me. And I thought, oh, where they fix video games. I thought, oh, I think I recognize what you mentioned. So maybe I'll see what episode that's in. Thanks, DA Drive. So Walter's wife's name. Um, Walter Bernard didn't exactly have a wife that I know of. There are other vampires and Medusa in the Castle in Lament of Innocence, and he had another vampire as his kind of slave. But no. So Mina Harker and Elizabetha from back in the days of Vlad the Impaler both look the same. They're both played by Winona Ryder. So otherwise, it goes in the events of the novel. So it's a pretty good representation of the Dracula novel. So I do recommend it, in spite of my complaints that Keanu Reeves is miscast. Anthony Hopkins, Winona Ryder, and Gary Oldman all did a pretty good job. So now here are some Easter eggs from video games. So the one on top is from the Van Helsing video game. That was for PS2, Xbox. So I'm gonna read it for you. You glance at a mysterious book relating to the exploits of Dracula's arch enemies, the Belmonts. So yeah, in the Van Helsing video game, it's based on the 2004 film starring Hugh Jackman, which I think it's
I'm
okay.
back.
The
Sorry
Van
about that.
Helsing video. So I'm back, and we're going to the video game references here. So Metal Gear
Oh, sure.
Solid and Van Helsing. So I was talking about how the Van Helsing video game, based on the film starring Hugh Jackman, uh, has the references to the Belmonts if you walk through the library. So
Oh, the PS2 game. Shit, that's been a long time.
yes, yeah, it's been a while. And
What
Metal
a
Gear Solid
what a fun movie.
has Easter egg too. It was. I really liked how the Van Helsing movie started with the black and white, where the monster, where Frankenstein makes the monster. And they
Mm-hmm.
start with a black and white homage to older films by Universal.
Yes.
It's okay, Shadow Master. We're gonna save this whole stream and make a supercut.
Yeah. Hey, Shadow. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, I mean it was an interesting film. I mean it had a lot of comical moments to it and monster moments as well.
It's more fun than anything else, I think,
Oh
is
yeah.
what it's most well known for, and being Castlevania before we ever got the anime.
Yeah. But the next one is Metal Gear Solid. So in order to do this in Metal Gear Solid, you need a memory card and you need a save game for Symphony of the Night. Then during the boss fight known as Psycho Mantis in Metal Gear Solid, the game takes a look at your memory card. So he'll notice if you have a Symphony of the Night save file on your memory card. He'll say, "Oh, you like Castlevania, don't you?"
Oh, interesting.
So it's a fourth wall break by Psycho Mantis, where he's reading into your mind about what games you've been playing. So you need to have a Symphony of the Night save file for him to notice. Hey, you like Castlevania.
What an obscure reference.
And it gets funnier too because you mentioned how they asked because David Cox, when producing the first Lords of Shadow, actually asked Hideo Kojima to co-produce for the first Lords of Shadow game. So it's another connection to within Konami to their games.
Interesting. I never would have guessed that connection existed, but all right.
Yeah. But he goes over other games. It just depends what you have save files for on the memory card, and he'll read it. It even works when you emulate, PlayStation as well,
Mm-hmm.
because you have a virtual memory card, so it works that way as well. It works that way too. So this is our next episode next week. We're going to be recommending our retro video games, and we're going to be taking turns talking about our favorite games that we recommend you play. Even though they're old, they're golden. So we're going to be recommending what games we think you should play from in the past in 2024. So I have some mine, and Albeleo will be sharing some of his. So we're going to be taking turns recommending. I miss when Konami cared about their games. Well, yeah. I miss the part where I miss when they came out with new games and they aren't remaking right now like they're doing with Metal Gear Solid.
Which is a shame because we'll never get like proper remasters of any of the Castlevania games at this point.
Right. I mean, we have it to a limited extent. The ones that we don't have remastered now are Symphony of the Night, and the 3D ones for PS2, and Castlevania 64, and the DS ones. So all those games that they haven't remastered yet could be a one remaster collection, and they would finish it off. But they're not exactly making things that are new.
Mm-hmm.
Bloodstained, as you mentioned earlier last time, in part two, although Bloodstained is a spiritual successor, and there's also the Dead Cells Castlevania mod, but that's what we have now. And Grimoire of Souls, I don't quite count it. It's a pay-to-win game. I don't like pay-to-win games.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. CJ, I have heard of Skies of Arcadia. I played it on my cousin's Dreamcast. Maybe there's a GameCube version or something that I could try? But
I feel like I've heard of it, but I don't know it.
So I played it on my cousin's Dreamcast for a little bit. It's a role-playing game where you fly an airship in a world where you have floating cities and airships shooting cannons at each other in the air. That's how crazy it is.
Oh, okay.
So you're building up your ship, and you're building up your ship, upgrading your equipment on the ship, your guns and other parts on your ship, and you have your crew. So you're a pirate in the sky.
Mm.
And it was one of those very just unique kinds of games that I just don't see much of. I mean, maybe Star Control, which I'm going to be mentioning in my own standalone recommended retro games, and I'm also going to be mentioning in the next episode too. So that's a spoiler right there. I'm going to be mentioning Star Control 2 comes close, but that's not in the air. That's out in space.
Miriam versus Shanoa. Crap, who's
Oh,
Miriam?
I Miriam is from. I think Shanoa has a lot of edge on Miriam. Here, I'll try. I'll bring up the page if I can. Here, Miriam.
So is Miriam in Castlevania? Because I'm drawing a blank here. I know Shanoa.
Yeah, I know she's in Castlevania. She's in Bloodstained. That's who she is.
Oh, that's right. That's the main character. Sorry, I haven't played Bloodstained yet.
So, Darkstalkers by Capcom. I may get around to that. I played the Darkstalkers for PS1 as a long time ago, but it could be on recommended retro games. The recommended retro games is going to have multiple episodes because it takes us quite a bit of time to cover them all. So you're in for a treat.
I don't know anything about Darkstalkers. I only know
Morgan
because
game.
Everybody knows her, and
it's the
John Talbane because of Death Battle.
Oh, those ones. Okay. Yeah, I played Darkstalkers a while ago. But it was a fun way to it got some interest from me. Game prepped me to be so you mean Skies of Arcadia, CJ? Yeah. I can see that. I mean, Pirates in the Sky, One Piece Pirates. So yeah. But to finish this off, I know we're kind of pressed for time here. I'm going to put all 3 of these Castlevania episodes together into one trilogy supercut that I'll be premiering on YouTube and on Rumble. So that should be good. And next week, we're going to have plenty of recommended retro games. Well, at least a few for our first episode. Anything else you want to add, Albeleo?
Well, thank you very much for having me, as usual. New video tomorrow, and thanks again.
All right. Well, Lords of Shadow. I already posted part 1 of Lords of Shadow lore. I'll put it in the description, okay? All right. Thanks, Zane. So, in the meantime, have fun out there. Be safe. We're going to be coming back next Thursday with another episode. So, time to sign off and have a wonderful day. To be continued, yes.
I have played Soul Calibur. I love Soul Calibur.